Hey friends, welcome back to the Chapel Online. Jacob here, if you're wondering why it's Jacob and not Anne. Anne is actually in Uganda for the next 2 weeks in Africa, just ministering to the people there. We're really excited that she has the opportunity to do that and just pour into kids and women and just all sorts of people to just hopefully just inspire and bring what we're doing here around the world. We're such a global focused ministry, so we're really excited that she gets to do that. If we haven't formally met, my name is Jacob. I've been leading worship with y'all for the past couple months, and it's been a joy and an honor to do so. But I just wanted to extend this opportunity to be in prayer for Anne as she travels and as she pours into people, that she would just have the opportunity to change lives and for her life to be changed. So I would just ask over these 2 weeks if you would just be in prayer with me for her and for the people that she is going to touch and minister, that lives would be changed, people would be healed, that God would reveal and God would move in that situation. So we're about to go into a time of a message that she has pre-recorded. We have 2 weeks starting off our series in Proverbs. We've made it through Psalms, so we're about to start off with Proverbs with a message that Anne has pre-recorded before her trip, and then I'll lead y'all in some worship after. But I just wanted to come in and just say thank y'all for being here, and I just want to invite y'all to be in prayer for her over the next 2 weeks.
Hey friends, Anne here, and welcome back to The Difference, the place where you come to hear about the difference that Jesus makes in your life. Today we are going to be in the book of Proverbs. And Proverbs is such a neat book because it was written by Solomon, who was King David's son. If you remember back to the stories that we read about Solomon in the Old Testament, we will remember that one of the things that made Solomon so unique is the fact that God said, "Ask for anything and I will give it to you." And instead of asking for wealth or for influence or status or popularity or anything like that, Solomon asks for wisdom. Wisdom to rule God's people well, wisdom to lead them and guide them in the way that God would have him lead. And that was such a wise thing to ask that God granted him that wisdom and said, as a matter of fact, I'm going to give you all these other things that you didn't ask for. And in the book of Proverbs, this is where we see Solomon's wisdom being communicated to us. And the way that Proverbs is laid out is it's laid out in chapters. And some of those chapters have kind of cohesive themes, but then others are just collections of wise sayings that Solomon developed throughout his time. And the thing that I like about Proverbs is that it is so practical. It gives us just plain wisdom for life. It's a great place where we can come and learn very practical tools for us to use in our everyday lives. And so today what we're going to do is look at an excerpt, a passage from Proverbs chapter 3, and we're just going to pull out some of that wisdom for life that Solomon is telling us in these verses. And we're going to be in Proverbs 3 verses 1 through 12. So let's go ahead and dig in and see what Solomon has to teach us today in these verses. So just to give you a look at how we're going to break this up and tackle this passage, we're going to see that in verses 1 through 4, Solomon calls for us to remember God's faithfulness in the past and who he is. And then we're going to hear that in verses 5 through 8, Solomon calls us to trust God, that trusting God is the wisest thing we can do. And then we're invited in verses 9 through 10 to release, to not hold on to our possessions or our wealth, but instead release those so that we can be in the position to receive all that God has for us. And then finally, we are called to accept what God has for us, his will and his way. And so let's go ahead and dig in and start with this first admonishment to remember. In verses 1 through 4 of chapter 3, it says this: My child, never forget the things I have taught you. Store my commands in your heart. If you do this, you will live many years and your life will be satisfying. Never let loyalty and kindness leave you. Tie them around your neck as a reminder. Write them deep within your heart. Then you will find favor with both God and people, and you will earn a good reputation. So the first thing that we are told to do, the first advice that he gives us in this chapter is to remember. And specifically, he says this about remembering, that remembering is active. Never forget the things I have taught you, which means that there's a continual rhythm of reminder that we are to have as we remember the things that God has taught us in the Bible. That remembering is active. It's not just, oh, I remember once, but it's a continual process of remembering. And then he goes on to say that it is internal. Store my commands in your heart. Notice that he's not just talking about knowing the commands, but actually storing them in our hearts, which means that we're grappling with those commandments, that we're working out how to apply them in our lives, that we are storing them so that they can become a part of our thinking and our choosing and our motivations for our behaviors and our actions. He says also about remembering that remembering is ongoing. He says, never let loyalty and kindness leave you. Remember that this is a continual process. When we remember who God is and we've stored that in our hearts, then loyalty and kindness will just naturally be released. That it is an ongoing thing. We don't have to try to be loyal and kind because it just happens without effort when we remember who God is and who we are in Him. And then he says that it is forever. Tie them around your neck. Write them deep within your heart. This is something that is ongoing, that is forever, that it should always be with us. God's commands and His laws and the things that He has taught us should always go with us as if it is around our neck, as if it is tied to our heart. We are to actually write these things on our heart so that it changes our thinking and our choosing and our feeling and our motivations, which then result in proper behavior and actions. First wisdom for life that we hear is that we are to remember. And this is an active and ongoing process. And then the second thing that he tells us is all about trust. So verses 5-8 say this: trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek His will in all you do, and He will show you which path to take. Don't be impressed with your own wisdom. Instead, fear the Lord and turn away from evil. Then you will have healing for your body and strength for your bones. So he talks about the fact that we should trust the Lord. And when he talks about trust, he is talking about this as if it is complete trust. Not part way, but with all your heart. We are to give all that we are, all that we have, all that I am, and trust all of that to God. Not just the things that don't really mean that much to me, not just the things that I have that are extra. I am called to complete trust in God. And then he says about trust that trust is surrendered. We're not depending on our own understanding. We surrender our own understanding. Because friends, our perspective is so narrow, it's so limited, and God's is so big, it is so wide. He is able to see all of the world, the entirety of it. And His view encompasses everybody for all time. Why would we then trust in our own very small, limited, narrow understanding? We are to surrender our understanding and embrace His understanding with all of our heart. Trust is humbled. We are to seek His will in all we do, which means that we are to humble ourselves and we are to seek what He has for us, not what we want for ourselves. We need to have a posture of being humble. And then he says that it is face down. Do not be impressed with your own wisdom. Basically, the picture here is being face down, that you are bowed and you are not haughty, you are not proud, you are not impressed with yourself, but you are humbled and you are face down and you're saying, God, in light of all that you know, I know nothing. I trust in you. Friends, this is what it looks like to trust God fully. This is one of the wisest choices that we can make for our lives, is to trust Him completely with all that we are and with all that we have. So we are called on to remember, and then we're called on to trust. When we remember who He is and we remember the words that He has written down for us, it causes us to want to trust. And then once we trust, it causes us to be willing to release. This is what he says about this idea of release in verses 9 through 10. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the best part of everything you produce. Then He will fill your barns with grain, and your vats will overflow with good wine. Friends, He's calling us to a posture of release. So many times when we experience the blessing that God has for us, it's like we hold open our hands and then we receive this blessing, and then we close our hands around it in this posture of control, where we say, oh God, you have given me this blessing. I've got to use it well, and I've got to make sure that I am a good steward, and so I'm not going to release it. I'm not going to let it go because it is a gift from you. Friends, we are called to a posture of release. He says this, that release is actually honoring to God. When we honor Him with our wealth, we are releasing some of the finances that He has given us to be used for the work of the church and the work for ministry in the world. When we have received from Him, we look to Him and we hold all of our hands wide open when we say, God, whatever it is that you want from what you have given to me, Lord, that is what I will give back to you. I will release it. If it's 10%, if it's 50%, if it's 100%, if it's this blessing that you have given me for this period of time in my life, if it's this influence, if it's this status, Lord, I give you all of the things that produce wealth in my life. I release it. And in that way, in having a posture of release, we are honoring God. He also goes on to say that this should be a priority, that it should be the best part of everything that we produce. Many times we give to God with this idea that it's something we have to do. And so we think, okay, well, whatever I have left at the end of the month, or whatever I have left from this crop in Bible days, or whatever I have left over that I'm not using, then I will release that to other people or to be used by you, God. And what God is asking for here, what Solomon is saying is the wisest thing to do, is not give God the last, but to give Him the first. The word here is actually first fruits, which means the best of your harvest. So we're not called to give God the rest. We're called to give God the best, to make giving and releasing a priority in our lives. He also talks about how we will be receiving because of God's generosity, that He will fill our barns with grain. Friends, the way that God works in His economy is that He blesses us and He gives us. And then when we don't hold on to it, but when we keep our hands wide open and we're willing to release, we put ourselves in the posture to receive from God's generous gift of blessings again. When we're holding on to the blessings that God has given us with firm hands in a firm grip, we are not able to receive new blessings. We're holding on to these things and we almost make them idols in our lives. And we order our lives around these things and these blessings and these material possessions. And what God wants for us is for us to open our hands and to be in this posture of release, to say, God, you have blessed me with this, and I give it back to you, and I will release it. And friends, what happens is that you are now in a posture to receive the generous gift of God's future blessings. And he goes on to say that these blessings are good, that the vats will overflow with good wine. Friends, so many times we think, oh, well, when I release, then God's going to give me more of what I had. Or he's going to give me the desires of my heart. If I release to him my old car, he's going to give me a brand new car. Friends, it doesn't work like that. His blessings are good. They are so much better than these small temporary blessings that we often ask for or imagine or desire for ourselves. When we have a posture of release and we are willing to give back to God from the things he has given to us, then we put ourselves in the position to receive his generous blessings and know that they are always good and they are always for our best. So we are called to remember, we are called to trust, and because we trust, we can have a posture of release. And when we have a posture of release, this puts us in the place for us to accept. In chapter 3, verses 11 through 12, Solomon says this, "My child, don't reject the Lord's discipline, and don't be upset when he corrects you. For the Lord corrects those he loves, just as a father corrects a child in whom he delights." Friends, we are called to accept whatever God has for us, whether it's blessing, whether it's discipline, whether it's affirmation, or whether it's correction. He reminds us that we are to accept correction and discipline because it is from God. It's the Lord's wisdom. In his wisdom, he knows what is best for you. He knows what you need in order to grow in your faith. And so he's going to do whatever it will take in order to lead you to a place of further growth and a deeper relationship with him. Friends, accept the gift of that discipline because it comes from God. He reminds us not to be defensive. Don't be upset when he corrects you. Friends, when we get defensive, what we are defending is our own sinful nature. It's our own desires. It's our own conviction that we are defending. Friends, when we are being corrected by God, we should receive that once again with open hands because we know that it comes from our loving Father. We know that it comes from him. He also goes on to say that this correction that we are to accept, he corrects those he loves. He corrects us because of his great love, his unfailing love. In his love, he doesn't want to leave us in this place of rebellion or in this place of limitation. He wants to correct us so that we can have the full life that he has promised to us. We are to accept it because it comes from a place of love. And then we read that we are to accept it because he is a father who delights in us, his children. It comes from a place of love and it comes from a place of delighting to spend time with us. And he will lovingly remove anything in our life that inhibits us from spending time with Him in a close, intimate relationship. Friends, these are some good words of wisdom for our life. That we are called to remember who God is and His commands for us. And when we do, that enables us to trust in Him. Not just trust Him in the good times, but trust Him in all of the times and surrender our own will and adopt His will. And when we do that, we are called to release. We're called to release the blessings that He has given us so that we can be in the posture to receive what He has next. And then we're called to accept. When we are in times in our life that we don't understand, where God is disciplining us and correcting us, we are called to accept that. Because we trust Him, we know it comes from a place of love for us, and that He will do whatever is necessary to bring us back to a right relationship with Him. Friends, let's pray. Father, we thank You for these words of wisdom. God, I ask that You will write them on our hearts. Let them guide our thoughts and our directions, our thinking and our feeling and our choosing. Lord, help us to remember that everything that You do for us comes from a heart of love. God, because You love us, You bless us. And help us not idolize those blessings, but help us to open up our hands in a posture of release so that we can receive all that You would have for us. And Father, help us to stay away from defensiveness when You try to correct us, when You try to discipline us and to move us into further growth with You. Help us press into those times. Help us open our eyes and our hands and our ears to Your loving correction and move forward in that correction so that we can experience the fullness of an intimate relationship with You. In Your name I pray. Amen.
Humbly I stand in offering, with open hands. Lord, I bring everything, everything and nothing less. My best, my own. You deserve my every breath, my life, my soul. Humbly I stand in offering, with open hands. Lord, I bring everything, everything and nothing less. My best, my all. You deserve my every breath, my life, my soul. And I surrender all. I surrender all. I surrender all. I surrender take control. I trust you. I'm letting go to give you everything, everything and nothing else. My best, my all. You deserve my everything, my life, my song, sing everything. Everything and nothing less. I give you everything and nothing less. Forever, everything and nothing less. My life is yours, completely yours. Everything and nothing less. I give you everything and nothing less. Forever, everything and nothing less. My life is yours, completely yours. I surrender, I surrender all. I surrender, I surrender all. I surrender, I surrender all. I surrender, I surrender all.
So, friends, we have learned some good wisdom for life today. And we have been reminded that we are to remember his words, to trust him fully, to release the blessings that he has given us, and then to accept this correction and discipline that he offers for our good. And I hope that this week you will continue reading in the book of Proverbs with us. We're going to read through Proverbs this week, and you'll notice that after this video posts, there will be a reading guide that we'll post after that, which will let you know how we're going to structure our reading plan throughout the week. And friends, there's going to be so much wisdom, so much great advice for us from King Solomon that I can't wait to experience this with you. And friends, we will see you back next week for next week's episode of The Difference. Have a good week.
Everything and nothing less. I give